Good morning, everyone. My name's Dave Medeiros. I am the president of the Chesapeake Region Safety Council. We are a regional independent chapter of the National Safety Council, and our mission is to educate and influence people to prevent accidental injury and death. In addition to being a chapter of the National Safety Council, we are also part of the Mid-Atlantic OSHA Training Institute Education Center, which means we are authorized within OSHA's Region 3 of the country to teach numbered OSHA courses. So I just wanted to give you a little heads up as to who we were. One quick note of importance to all of you: we are slowly opening our doors back up to in-person training. We are allowing small groups that are socially distanced, following a certain safety protocol, to attend class at our facility in Woodlawn, Maryland, as well as we are doing virtually instructor-led training programs also to include our numbered OSHA courses. So what I would encourage you to do, if you have the opportunity, to take a look at our website, www.chesapeakesc.org, and see if there's something of interest for you. Once again, we have both opportunities, both in person and through the virtual instructor-led training. So without further ado, I want to introduce two gentlemen to you from the Baltimore County Fire Department. And they're going to talk about roadway safety as well as some fire safety tips for you too. The roadway safety may be a little different than what you think. It's going to try to help you understand how to respond to an incident where you see fire department, police at a roadway incident, and you approach it in your vehicle. What do you got to do? How do you have to respond appropriately to that, as well as some fire safety tips for us too to follow, typically as it relates to the construction of buildings. All right, I'm going to give you a little bio on these two gentlemen. It probably won't be in order, but really good. The first one is Lieutenant Travis Francis. He's a Purdue graduate. He's got 17 years with the Baltimore County Fire Department. He's an EMT. He's a firefighter. There's a lot of stuff he's engaged with Baltimore County Fire. And, you know, the important stuff is he loves to spend time with his son. He enjoys a good whiskey every once in a while and a nice cigar. So me and Lieutenant Travis are going to have a time sometime to spend time intellectualizing about fire safety, I guess it is. And as well, we have Captain Scott Eber. He's got 25 years with the fire service. He's with the Baltimore County Fire Department's Safety Division. Like us in the safety and health field, he works to oversee and improve safety and health for over 1,000 career firefighters and 3,000 volunteer firefighters. So I'm sure he's got his hands full with that job as well. All right, without further ado, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. And Captain Eber, you're on.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And thanks to the Chesapeake Region Safety Council for giving us this opportunity. There are a lot of organizations, great organizations, that are able to use this platform, Zoom platform, WebEx, etc., to continue pushing out some really great information during this pandemic that's affected all of us. So this is a great opportunity to share some important information and have an important discussion about some great topics and safety related topics. Obviously that is a passion of mine. Roadway safety, we have it's called a FireFighter Safety Stand Down coming up that is sponsored jointly by the International Association of Fire Chiefs and the National Volunteer Fire Council. And basically what that is, the Safety Stand Down, is a week that's set aside during the year where we drop everything non-emergency related, of course, and focus on one particular topic. So it just happens to be this year roadway safety and protecting our responders on the roadways. If you have the opportunity to talk to a firefighter friend of yours or see a firefighter out and about someday, ask them where the scariest place is for them to work, and they'll probably answer the highway. The highway, the roadways are amongst the most dangerous places that we work. We would much rather run into a burning building than work on the side of I-95. And the reason for that is there are certain things that we can control at a fire ground, at a fire incident. There are things that we can do. We can retreat to a safer position. We can fight the fire from the outside in, things like that, where we can protect our members better. On the roadway, we're out there, we're very vulnerable to traffic, and quite frankly, it seems like everyone else has a more important place to be than us. So very seldom do we see traffic slow down or have any due regard for the people that have to work on the side of the highway. So just last year in 2019, there were 44 fatalities of highway workers, and that encompasses law enforcement, fire and EMS, tow operators, and mobile mechanics even. So of that 44, 18 were law enforcement. The most, of course, because they're out on the highways all the time, making traffic stops, checking on disabled motorists, and obviously accidents and other medical emergencies. 17 were tow operators, 3 of which were mobile mechanics. Again, it makes sense because they're out there all the time, working on the side of the highway, not in the best position and often not protected at all. And then 9 were fire and EMS personnel. This year so far, we've got 10 law enforcement that have been killed in the line of duty on the highway, 3 fire and EMS personnel, 6 tow operators or mechanics, and 1 DOT worker. So you would look at those numbers and think that, you know, they aren't huge numbers, and they're not, yet they are continuously the second or third biggest cause of line of duty deaths in fire and EMS personnel. So just something to keep in mind, just emphasizes the dangers that we face on the side of the road. So let me get this PowerPoint to advance here. Sorry about that. So there are over 12,000 roadway incident responses daily nationwide. Quite a number there. That's daily, nationwide in the continental United States. In 2019, Baltimore County responded to just over 2,000 incidents on the roadway. And the top 3 causes, most of those responses, most of our highway responses are during the rush hour, right? So that kind of makes sense. Either in the morning or in the evening during that rush hour are our biggest responses. The top 3 causes of crashes or emergencies on the roadway: alcohol, excessive speed, and distracted driving. Distracted driving has been a big one, and Lieutenant Francis will attest to this as well. It's very often that we see cars passing an accident scene. They're trying to shoot a picture with their smartphone, or they're looking down texting as they're driving and things of that nature. We're just distracted by technology in our vehicles nowadays. I think in Tesla, you can play a video game if you want while you're driving down the highway. So we're very concerned about that trend for our members. So I'm going to talk about basically three different categories, and the first one we're gonna chat about is if you're involved in an accident or emergency yourself, what should your actions be? If you're involved in an accident or an emergency, the location is critical to get you the help that you need. We are often dispatched or sent to an incorrect location because people just don't know where they are, or they're obviously upset by the incident that's occurred. They're frantic. They're not paying attention to where they are. So we'll often get the incorrect location, which causes a delay in our response, and obviously doesn't get you any help faster. So pay attention to where you are. The Beltway is a big circle. There's an inner loop, there's an outer loop. That is helpful information to us, what loop you're on. What exit you just passed is helpful. Mile markers on the side of the road. There are small white rectangular signs that will give you the mile marker on interstates like 95. All that is helpful information to us. And like I said, it'll get us there faster. There are times when we are not dispatched to the correct location and we have to put more apparatus, more equipment on the street to respond to your emergency because we're just not in the position at that point to get to you in a fast manner. So it also increases the risk to us because we're putting more apparatus on the street, running lights and sirens, pushing other people, out of our way to get to you. So location is a big thing. Safe area. So we try to tell people to pull off to the slow shoulder of a highway that allows us the most protection. There's typically slower traffic in that number 3 lane or that slow lane on the highway. And it's much easier for us to get to you when we come onto the highway from the entrance. First of all, if you can get off of the highway, that would be great, to a secondary road, a parking lot of a business, something like that. That's ideal. We don't want to work on the highway if we don't have to. But if you have no other choice or your vehicle can't be moved a long way, or you have a serious medical emergency and you need help right then and there, pull off to the shoulder of the roadway as much as you can to get out of the flow of traffic and away from the fast moving traffic. Safe movements. So we tend to get focused on the emergency at hand or the situation that's going on at hand. And we lose sight of the fact that we're on the side of a major highway or a busy roadway where traffic is traveling at high rates of speed. And we just fling open that driver's door and step out of the car. Obviously, we want to be a little bit more methodical than that. Use your side view mirrors to check for traffic. If you can, crawl and get out the passenger side of your car so you're not exiting your vehicle into traffic if you have to leave the vehicle at all. Obviously, we want you to get out of the car if you think the car is on fire, there's something wrong with the car, or if traffic is moving at a high rate of speed and you don't feel safe sitting in your vehicle. You want to get in the grassy area in the median or off to the shoulder. Exit your vehicle carefully so that you're not struck. We do have a number of those incidents where we're not paying attention to what's going on around us. We're just focused on one thing and we fling open that driver's door and get struck by a fast moving vehicle. So all things to keep in mind. Pay close attention, have that situational awareness, if you will. Next, we're going to talk about approaching an emergency scene or a construction area. A lot of states have laws that help keep us safe. In the state of Maryland, we do have a slow down, move over law. Not sure why this keeps advancing on me here. Apologize for that. So we do have a slow down, move over law. If you come up on a construction scene or emergency apparatus on the side of the road, tow truck driver, etc., if you are not able to move over a lane away from that scene, then we do encourage you to slow down as much as possible. We've noticed that that does often happen. Some people pay close attention to that, and almost to a fault, if you will. what we don't want you to do is slam on the brakes, because there are people behind you that may not be able to stop their car in time or slow down in time. So we want the slow down maneuver to be a little bit gradual, and then move over a lane if you possibly can. You don't have to come to a complete stop and then move over a lane to abide by that law. We appreciate the efforts, but often that causes a secondary incident or a secondary crash that then we have to respond to as well. So slow down, move over is the message that we're sending, that we want to send, and part of our public education portion of the firefighter stand down was going to include messages like slow down, move over. Haas incident alerting. So Haas is a company that provides incident alerting to your GPS device. So I know they're hooked up with Waze right now, and I believe they have an agreement in place with Google Maps. And basically, when you're using either of those platforms to get from point A to point B, along your route of travel, if you're going to come up on an emergency scene where there are police or fire department apparatus present, it will actually pop up with a warning that is letting you know that there are fire apparatus or there are police officers ahead of you. So it'll give you more of an opportunity to plan to move your vehicle, over a lane or slow down. It'll give you a little bit of an advance warning. We've got several new fire apparatus that we're expecting in Baltimore County. 16 fire engines, 3 ladder trucks, and a tower have all been purchased, and they will all be equipped with the Haas alerting system in it. So those vehicles will be participating in that program, and hopefully all of our future apparatus will be as well, to increase the safety of those we serve. And it enhances, of course, our members' safety as well. So when we arrive at the scene, there are things that we do, and a lot of the general public find it difficult to understand sometimes why we do the things that we do. We have to approach the scene with member safety being our utmost priority. We want to protect our members who have to get out of the vehicle and operate. So we have some standard operating procedures that we follow, one being apparatus positioning, and I'll show you a diagram of that. But basically, when our apparatus approaches the scene, we approach the scene at an angle. We typically take up or block one additional traffic lane than where the incident is. And again, that allows us to taper off traffic, divert it or deflect it away from where our members have to operate. So often, motorists we find get frustrated because when they get up to the accident scene in slow moving traffic, they see that, we have 2 lanes shut down and the accident is only taking up 1 lane. It's done for a very specific reason. It's based on history and the accidents that have occurred in the past. And it's for a very, very good reason, to protect our members and the safety of our members. Our new apparatus comes with other safety enhancements, including an upgraded lighting package to allow advanced warning for motorists that are approaching our accident scene, especially at nighttime. We're actually going to program the rear emergency lighting differently. Basically, a slower blink pattern causes less of a distraction. Studies have found that it causes less of a distraction to approaching motorists to avoid any secondary incidents. According to the Federal Highway Administration, the likelihood of a secondary crash increases 2.8% for every minute that initial incident is a hazard. So for every minute that we're on the scene, the likeliness of a secondary crash goes up 2.8%. So we spend an average in Baltimore County of about 14 minutes on the scene, give or take, which increases our likeliness of having a secondary incident to 39.2%. So it's pretty significant. We don't want to be on the roadway any more than you want to sit in traffic or have to deal with approaching an accident. So we work as fast as we can, as safe as we can, to get everything cleared up. Any patients that need to be treated and transported, taken care of. Obviously, that's what we're there for. We're going to get that job done as fast as we can and get the roadway open back up as fast as we can. But we've got to take these steps to ensure that our members are protected while they have to operate on the highway. The traffic incident management area is what we set up. This gives you this graphic from the Emergency Responder Safety Institute, gives you a little bit of an idea of how we identify lanes in the roadway. So starting left to right, we have the left or the inside shoulder. That's one of the most dangerous places that we can be, because obviously we have to deal with both sides of the highway, both flows of traffic there. It's much harder, obviously, to get from the on-ramp over to that left inside shoulder. We have to cross those 3 lanes of traffic or 4 lanes of traffic to get to you. And then the numbers start on the fast lane, what many refer to as the fast lane, and then work their way up as you go right. So the left lane, or lane 1, 2, 3, and then the right lane, or lane number 1 and the right shoulder. So that gives you an idea of how we identify where we're operating or where we need to be. So this is a traffic incident management area, or a temporary traffic control zone. This is similar to what we would set up for a typical accident scene. You'll see that we have the larger apparatus there as the blocker or the buffer. We have some cones set up to taper off that transition area there. And then we dispatch 2 major apparatus on a highway incident. So we'll typically have 2 fire engines, or fire engine and a ladder truck. 2 big apparatus will be dispatched, and 1 will position in that advanced warning area to give people a little bit of a notice that, hey, something's going on, up the road here. Start to get over, or start to slow down. We always try to position the smaller apparatus and the medical transport units downstream of the incident within the protection of the buffer or the blocker. And then obviously our members are gonna operate in that activity area, or that incident space. We're training our members to designate someone to be a spotter. So someone will actually face traffic the entire time with a radio, and they'll be able to give a little bit of an advance warning to the members operating on the scene should anything unusual be approaching. Fast moving vehicle, tractor trailer that can't seem to get over in time, or something like that. They can give us a little bit of a heads up, and we can get out of harm's way should a secondary accident occur. So this gives you an idea of how we do things. That initial fire unit, like I discussed, positions at that angle to deflect traffic, communicates the lane or shoulder position to other units so that our other units know where to respond to, designate that spotter, and request additional resources like CHART. So in the state of Maryland, we're super lucky to have CHART. CHART stands for the Coordinated Highways Action Response Team. They were established in the mid-1980s. They are a group of professionals that are very good at what they do. They can set up one of these traffic incident control areas or incident management areas very fast, very efficient. They respond quickly. If they can, they will pull vehicles out of the middle of the roadway to a shoulder for us to operate safer. They're a really great resource to have in the state of Maryland. Our initial EMS unit will position downstream within the protection of that buffer or that blocker unit. Try to angle that rear entryway to the unit where we're loading or unloading our patient at an angle so that it's away from traffic. And obviously that secondary fire unit will position in that advanced warning area to provide that advanced warning to other motorists. We typically do not respond with smaller vehicles like utility trucks or pickup trucks or Suburbans or anything like that, and use them to block traffic on highway incidents. They're always downstream of the incident within the protection of that blocker or that buffer. So the Firefighter Safety Stand Down is coming up soon. We're excited to participate in that. It's June 14th through the 20th. And basically we're going to drop all of our non-emergency activities to participate in that to further our education on a very dangerous topic for us, something that puts us at a high risk for injury or line of duty death every day. There are a lot of different activities we're going to do that week. A lot of online training stuff, obviously, with the pandemic going on. And then there are some physical activities such as an audit of our traffic safety vests, cones and flares. And we're actually going to have our members take a look at where equipment is positioned or kept in the compartment on the apparatus. So we don't want our members to have to turn their back to oncoming traffic in order to get supplies out of the apparatus, such as an absorbent or cones or things like that. So we're actually going to have them take a look at that and see where they can move it, where that activity can be avoided. So if it's something you're interested in, there are a lot of great resources on that page, a lot of great resources on the Emergency Responder Safety Institute's page. SafetyStandDown.org is the website. Check it out if you have some time and some interest. A lot of that stuff on there, the resources and whatnot, doesn't just apply to the fire department. A lot of it, will apply to anybody that has to work or has business on the highways or working on the roadways. Lastly, this is my contact information. You can jot it down. Feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call at either one of those numbers. Free to answer any questions you have or have any further discussion on this stuff. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks again, Dave and Debbie, for the opportunity to present today. And I'm going to turn it over now to Fire Lieutenant Travis Francis, who's got some wisdom about building codes and fire protection in the buildings in and around Baltimore County. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Captain Ebbert. And I just want to echo his thanks to the Chesapeake Region Safety Council and everyone in attendance for joining us today and letting us provide some information and some educational and safety information to help us all function better in the workplace. There's kind of two areas I'm going to discuss today. There's no PowerPoint or anything like that. I like to have this as a discussion. It seems a lot of times workplace safety officers, managers have a lot of questions on conducting or implementing safety measures and making sure they're in line with the fire codes of their jurisdictions. A lot of what I'll speak on will be from the viewpoint of the Baltimore County Fire Department and how we effectively manage fire prevention, fire safety, and the code enforcement process here in Baltimore County. So just to start, and yet again, they have the question and answer section, so please feel free to put any questions in there and we will try to get answers to anything you have going on. But to begin, here in Baltimore County, the Fire Marshal's office starts to be a part of the planning process for any new buildings or renovations from the design stage. Actually, once a permit is issued, our fire marshals work with the architects and contractors, along with our analyst department, to work with getting an address assigned to the location and then inputted into our 911 communication center. The purpose of that is, in the event a construction accident happened before a building is fully built, we want to be able to find that location. So once a permit is issued, that's when we join the process of making sure this building is fully protected correctly. So our fire marshals get into the mix there, gets into the 911 center, and then we start, once the address is done, when the first pipe in the majority of buildings in most jurisdictions is put in the ground, it's what's called a fire line. So it provides water to the sprinkler system. And that is actually the initial inspection that takes place on any new building that's being put up. We come out and we make sure the pipe that's in the ground supplying water is properly constructed. It has all the safety mechanisms that are required. It's in line with the fire code that's in effect at that time. And then once we move on from there, we go into the construction phase, and then we really move into fire safety and personnel fire safety, because at this point, we're looking at the construction workers and what they're, as they build, making sure the building is safe and it's safe for them. So once we start construction, we're looking at safety systems, fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems are very important at this point. Making sure standpipes, if you have a high-rise building, as each floor goes on, we want to make sure the standpipes are being extended through the staircases. This is important because as the building's constructed, if there were to be a fire emergency and our firefighters had responded, they need to be able to make their way up the stairs and be able to connect to the standpipes that are normally in a finished business, even during the pre-construction phase. And that's actually one of the areas that we sometimes run into issues. I won't say problems, it's just the understanding of a lot of construction companies that as you build, your fire safety systems have to expand along with you. They're not an afterthought. Once sprinkler systems are totally in, they go through a series of different inspections. One of the first ones being a visual inspection to make sure that the location of the sprinklers within the building match the plans that were submitted and approved. Sometimes, and we all know, if you're building a building, you're gonna have areas where you're gonna have to make changes. Those changes still have to be in line with the fire prevention code. And that a lot of that comes out of our NFPA sprinkler requirements. So our fire marshals will go out, they'll do a visual inspection, make sure everything matches up. In the event they don't, and it's a significant change, they may allow the change to take place, but plans for that building will have to be updated to reflect those changes, because once they're done, those plans will be left at the building as what we call an as-built plan. So anytime someone comes to make changes, or we want to find out where different valves or shutoff systems are, we need the accurate plan of what's in that building. After the visual inspections, they'll conduct what we call a hydro inspection, where the system will be put under pressure for 24 hours to make sure there's no leaks in the system, no cracks, no bulges in piping, and this is all while the piping is exposed. Another area we sometimes find issue with the hydro inspection is sometimes, because people are trying to quickly get something constructed, they'll put the sprinkler piping in, they'll put sheetrock up, they'll cut a hole and say, hey, listen, just climb my ladder and peek inside there and you can see the pipe and everything's fine. Say, you know, if it was leaking, we would see water on the sheetrock. Unfortunately, here in Baltimore County, I know a lot of other jurisdictions follow the same process. That's not acceptable for us. We want to see every piece of that pipe. It's important because not only are we looking for if it's leaking, we're making sure it's secured properly and fastened to the building properly with the right fasteners. We want to make sure the glue that was used on the piping is correct, making sure the piping itself is correct. Any bends in pipe or elbows, everything has to match the plan. So do our best to work with our contractors here in Baltimore County to expedite the process, but as many buildings are being built and only so many fire marshals, we avoid delays, but we really stress to our contractors not to close in piping during these inspection phases, because a lot of times that closures might have to come down, sheetrock might have to come down, so we can make sure that building is perfectly safe. I know for myself, when I first started many years ago as a fire marshal, I was building a townhouse community in the Owings Mills area, and the contractor, he was rushing to get this thing done. He had deadlines he needed to get complete by, and I went into one of the townhouses, and his contractor were walking through. They closed up an area along a staircase leading to some bedrooms. And I was explaining to him, I need to see the pipe. And he's like, you've seen it in 20 other houses. What could be different here? And, we went back and forth, and his contractor, his sheetrock contractor, finally came in. He took the sheetrock down, and we actually found that the pipe running along the staircase to the bedroom was connected to nothing. And that really gave me, or provided me with that extra wisdom and effort to make sure these pipes are installed the correct way. And, he said, I would have never thought my sprinkler contractor would have did that. So that's the reasoning behind it. We're not trying to hold anyone up or anything like that. It's just to make sure it's correctly installed, because things like that do happen. Also in the construction phase, we're looking at the fire alarm system. Normally for fire alarm systems, we start consultations with fire alarm companies in the pre-construction phase to make sure the alarm system that's being installed matches the business type that is there. Those fire alarm systems monitor sprinkler systems. They provide notification for evacuation. So they are very, very important. And that starts early on in the pre-construction phase. And then similar to sprinkler systems, they also go through a series of final inspections before they're completely approved. Once construction is complete, we move into the use and occupancy stage. This is where the tenant is ready to move in, and the final inspections and permits are signed off by numerous departments, at least here in Baltimore County. These final inspections are final of the sprinkler system, the fire alarm system, a final, what we could call a pre-annual. So our fire marshals are, at this point, looking to make sure fire extinguishers are installed correctly, exit signage is in place, the proper locks are on doors, panic hardware in places of assembly. So this is the final product that's going to be turned over to the tenant. And it's very important at this stage that every aspect of the plans and fire code has been taken care of, so that when it's turned over, there's no question from the tenant as to why was the building given to me and this wasn't correct. And sometimes in those instances, we'll work with contractors and tenants, and we'll provide them what's called a partial occupancy, which means you might be able to bring your stock into the new building that you just built, but you're not able to bring personnel into work until all fire safety codes are in compliance. In most jurisdictions, the fire code is pretty much the last step in getting your use and occupancy permit approved. Once that's complete, we kind of move into the annual inspections of the building, which is where I saw a lot of safety managers online today, and where you come into, best way to put it is where your position gets very important from the aspect of the fire marshal. So we all know organizations are vulnerable to many different hazards and threats, including weather, natural disaster, power outages, fires, and acts of violence. A lot of times when we think of a fire drill, we always relate that to a fire emergency. But fire drills are actually an evacuation drill that's practiced in the business place to make sure your employees understand how to safely evacuate that building in the event of any type of an emergency, not just fire. We know in today's climate, there are acts of workplace violence where we have workplace shootings. these fire drills that we conduct, these are ways that our employees know ways out. So it's very important to practice these fire drills and make sure all of your employees understand it, and it's a continuous practice. A lot of places will provide a tour when they have new employees, and it might be done once a year. But very similar to school systems, our schools conduct these once a month. If it's a sprinkler building, it might be every 2 months, every 4 months, quarterly. But it's very important for businesses to also conduct these drills and for them to educate their employees on the purpose of them. It's not just for a fire, it's for your safety if anything took place. If there was a collapse in the building, a chemical spill in the building, these are all items that require us to get our employees out safely, and those responsibilities fall on our safety managers. Some of the steps the safety officers should make sure they are cognizant of in practicing is one, assigning fire safety roles. If you have a large corporation or organization, one safety manager might not be enough, but a lot of places might create CERT teams, emergency response teams, floor emergency managers, section chiefs that handle just the emergencies, evacuations. And this helps you to address the concerns of a smaller population in a larger organization. With doing that, it's very important that we, again, make sure it's continuous education. It's not just a one-time thing. We make sure the person we assign to this role is comfortable with those responsibilities and understands those responsibilities. You can't just say you're the manager for the third floor finance section and expect them to know exactly what to do. So there should be some type of ongoing training to make sure they understand what their responsibilities are and make sure they continue to be comfortable with their responsibilities. And that all goes back to making sure all employees have a clear understanding of what to do in the event of any type of emergency, not just the fire emergency. And discussing that, these safety managers should also understand what to do in the event of a medical emergency. A lot of times, we put so much emphasis on the fire safety and evacuation side, we really don't address medical emergencies, which is predominantly the reason the fire department and EMS respond to a lot of businesses. So when they respond, we should have someone able to direct them to where the patient is. And that's very important because if EMS units or paramedics respond to a large complex, building complex, and they say that the patient is in the nurse's office or in this section of the business, our responders might not be familiar with the layout of your building. So what happens is we don't have someone there to help us immediately. We have a delay of response to a medical emergency. So in that safety training, we want to make sure we're also addressing medical emergencies and how you will assist 911 responders when they arrive at your facility in the event of a medical emergency. Just to move on a little bit from that, again, assigning safety roles, we want to make sure we're assisting in implementing and improving effective emergency procedures in the workplace. As the workplace changes, as employees change, we want to make sure everyone knows these procedures. If there's renovations done, we want to update our evacuation plans and practice making sure everyone knows how to get out. The safety officer or the section chief wants to make sure they conduct a thorough walkthrough of the workplace. If that's not daily, every couple days, weekly, just to make sure they're assessing any fire hazards that may exist. And when they come across fire hazards, it's also important that they provide this information to the employees so everyone is aware of what hazards exist in the workplace. One of the #1 places that fires take place in workplaces, of course, is the workplace kitchen, the break room. Even if there's not a stove, the toaster, the microwave, any type of electrical devices normally serve as a fire hazard. So we want to make sure we're educating employees on what to do in the event there's a fire in the microwave. A lot of people might think, open the microwave and pull whatever's out in there. Well, a lot of times the microwave is made out of metal, If you left it closed, the fire likely would go out. But in most break rooms, because they're a place of hazard, there is a fire extinguisher. So we want to make sure we're providing our employees with fire extinguisher training. And that's very simple. Actually, a lot of resources on what we call the PASS, P-A-S-S, pull, aim, sweep, and shoot technique for utilizing a fire extinguisher is available online. There are YouTube videos, a simple education and training for your employees. You'd actually be surprised how many people, one, don't know where the fire extinguishers are at in their building, and two, if they do, they wouldn't know how to properly use it. So we want to make sure we're incorporating that in our training during those education stages. In evacuations, no matter what type of evacuation it is, we want to make sure that once everyone's out, we have a way of making sure everyone's accounted for and reporting that to our leadership or our incident commander. There's a lot of places change to that term. There's a lot of technology. A lot of our schools now have mobile devices that their teachers are able to send an alert or a text that, you know, their class is par and everyone's there, they're accounted for, or they're able to send information that someone's missing. If you watch a lot of the news, and sometimes when we have fires in the workplace or workplace shootings, one of the things you'll hear sometimes is they're still trying to account for 3 or 4 people. And that accounting sometimes means they're looking to see if their car was at the place of employment that day. They're calling their family to see if they reported for work. But with today's technology, we should be trying our best to keep an accounting of who's at work, who's in the workplace, and when they leave. Is it simple? Maybe not for some places, but if you have that technology as a safety officer, definitely recommend you pursue with your leadership, advising them the importance of accounting when it comes to an evacuation, so we know everyone's out. This is very important for our first responders when they arrive on scene, so that the incident officer is able to accurately send their troops in to either rescue someone or just suppress the fire. If we have proper knowledge that someone is definitely in that building and they were in, you know, this certain area, then we're going to send our rescue crews immediately to that area to try and get them out. Whereas if we arrive and we're told everyone's out, I have 15 employees in the building and all 15 of us are accounted for, you know, we can immediately go to suppressing the fire. And we still will do some life rescue efforts and search efforts to make sure no one that wasn't accounted for is still in the building. When we're doing our workplace walkthroughs, one of the biggest concerns we find during annual inspections is evacuation routes that are actually blocked, doors that are blocked, or doors that have new locks. A lot of times, depending on what's contained in the business, certain doors around the exterior, we decide that, you know, somebody might have broke in and we need to put new locks on these doors to keep anybody from coming in. The issue and concern that comes there is you're also keeping your people from getting out in the event of an emergency. In 1991, I know it's going back a little bit, but in North Carolina, they had a poultry farm with 90 employees. This place was sprinklered. However, it never had a safety inspection, never had any type of annual inspection from the fire marshal's office. During the course of a day, one of the deep fryers catches on fire. There's 90 employees inside the location. No one knows how to get out. There was never an evacuation route planned or practiced. 25 of the workers end up dying in this fire. What was found from that was the sprinkler system didn't work because it was never tested. No type of testing or annual maintenance on the system had taken place, and there was no evacuation plan. And that was in 1991. We have a lot more technology now to assist us in the workplace and making sure it's safe, but we have to use these systems. I saw someone just posted there were exit doors changed, and that is very true. A lot of times, employers will lock up doors or block them in an effort to prevent theft, but that can end up preventing life-saving efforts. So in your walkthroughs, in your annual walkthroughs with the fire marshal, you want to make sure you're addressing those concerns. Some other areas that we find concerning in workplaces: cooking appliance, I mentioned, electrical wiring, power strips that are overloaded or connected to each other. We call that piggybacking. They're actually not built for that. Power strips should all be plugged into the wall, not into each other. Lighting equipment, smoking materials. It'd actually be surprised that smoking materials can, even on the outside, cause significant damage to a building if they're not properly discarded. A lot of times in the summer months, you got that nice, beautiful, fresh mulch outside the front entrance. Employee goes out to smoke, tosses the cigarette, mulch catches on fire. Depending on what the building's made of on the outside, vinyl, wood siding, fire goes up the side, gets into the roof area, and could almost be a total loss of the building. So we want to make sure we're addressing those concerns and educating our employees to make sure they're doing everything safely. 1/5 of reported workplace fires, like I mentioned, occurred in the kitchen. This is a very vulnerable area. And though I think everyone understands that, it's very important that we stress that to our employees as we do these safety walkthroughs. Just a couple more areas, and I saw a couple questions popped up, and I know we don't have too many minutes left, but let me just run through these. With your safety officers, you want to make sure you develop a list of who are your section chiefs or floor managers, and make sure all employees understand who they are. These people should also feel they have the power and right to speak to their supervisors and leadership when they come across issues. Otherwise, they're not going to be effective if they're afraid to mention or bring issues to the forefront when it comes to workplace safety and fire-related issues. With that, I'm going to go down to the question and answer. I saw a couple had popped up, and actually a couple in there are for you, Scott. I do have a question from Jeffrey. It says, when you allow the end user to bring stock in, do you require them to unbox it and remove the combustible packing material immediately? In a situation like that, it all depends on the protections of the building. So if we have a fully protected sprinkler building with a fire alarm system that's monitored, they may be able to bring all that stock in and leave it there without an issue. But it's going to be more so of a judgment call. And that's where we use what's called the AHJ authority having jurisdiction, where you're able to make a call on that specific situation and not a board policy. Not sure if I missed any questions from our moderators.
Hi, everybody. This is Debbie Jennings. Yes, so we had a question asked in the chat box, and it was, and I believe it's to you, Lieutenant. Do you have any suggestions on how to keep an accurate accounting of the people on duty at any given time?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's a lot of technology out there for time and attendance. And, you know, some places have a sign-in, as they have for 20, 30 years at the front desk. They do it for visitors, but it's not done for employees. So it's pretty much up to the organization to figure out the best system, most cost-effective system for them to be able to track who's in the building at what time. With the current situation with the pandemic, I think returning to work is going to look a lot different for all of us. So it's really organization specific on what works best for you, but it is very important to promote a accountability system.
Okay. Could you touch a little bit on what people might see with COVID-19 in their responders, garb, and how that might be different than what they're used to seeing, you know, if somebody had come out previously?
Absolutely. One of the first changes that have been implemented here in Baltimore County and a lot of jurisdictions around us, for the fire marshal's office at least, we've actually for the first time suspended annual inspections. And this is why it's so important that these safety officers for their organizations are doing their utmost to ensure the safety of these buildings. Because of the exposure risk to our employees as well as yours, because our employees would be in numerous different businesses, hospitals, nursing homes. We chose to suspend all annual inspections until there's a better hold on what's taking place with the pandemic. So a lot of those inspections where we would be able to point out corrections that are needed, make sure sprinkler and fire alarm systems are undergoing their required testing and maintenance and they're properly working, aren't taking place right now. So it's very important that organizations are looking into those safety mechanisms, making sure exit signage is working, your fire extinguishers are within date, your exits are unblocked. As far as our responders, depending on the nature of the call, our 911 center vets a lot of information from 911 callers to kind of understand what they're responding to. You know, if that person is displaying symptoms of COVID-19, our responders, they may show up and they'll have gowns on, they'll have goggles on, face masks, full PPE to make sure they're protecting themselves and also protecting the patient from any type of spread of the virus. Also, inside our medic units, they're going through decon. Anytime a person of interest may have been transported or someone that might possibly have a positive case of COVID. So there's a lot of new processes taking place, but foremost is the safety of our constituents and the safety of our employees.
Thank you. Do you want to expand any more on the fire hazards common in workplaces? You had talked about the kitchen area. Is there any other location or efforts that you find to be a common cause of incidents?
Yes, another area is utility closets by NFPA fire code, if that's what jurisdictions use. Some use international fire code, but there are parameters on storage within utility closets and how close they can be to your hot water heaters, your HVAC systems, your electrical panels. So that's another area, because when somebody's looking for closet space and everything's filled up, just throw it in there with the hot water heater. It'll be fine. Chemical storage, improper chemical storage is another issue where these items can come in contact and become combustible materials that start fires even outside of work hours. Another area that a study recently found was the attic spaces, a space that's not normally accessed by our safety personnel or our employees themselves, especially looking into the safety of it. So making sure storage in the attic, we're not overloading the attic space itself, but also there's no combustible materials, no electrical issues. Because 9 times out of 10, when storage is put in a place of business's attic, it's normally paper material in high volume, which once a fire is in that area, it's burning under the roof. It's very hard to contain and definitely causes significant damage to a building.
Okay. And this question is relevant to me personally because it did happen. Is there information available for just the general population on fire safety and egress standards, that kind of thing? And the reason why I'm asking is because here in the office, we moved some desks around, and one of our bosses walked by and said, that's not enough room between your desk and the wall for everybody to get out safely. So we had to move things back around so that there was enough room. I wouldn't have known that as just a regular person. What resources do you tell non-safety professionals to use for things like that?
Yeah, so what we have is community risk reduction, CRR efforts. So because every jurisdiction is different, and Debbie, we spoke before, for 10 years, I actually inspected your Chesapeake region office over there in Woodlawn. And you guys were always on point. So whoever told you to move that desk, he was correct. But because everyone's different, I always, it's a good idea to reach out to your fire marshal's office, your local fire marshal office, as well as your local firefighters at the fire station. They can also provide you the resources you need to properly provide safety in your office, and whatever regulations are in place in your jurisdiction, they'll be able to provide you with that.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in either the chat or the question and answer box. I do have a few comments, and if you wouldn't mind, if you could both stay on while we talk about this. So the Maryland Highway Safety Office is leading the state's efforts for getting to Vision Zero for roadway fatalities. And one of their staff members is the director of the highway or chief of the Highway Safety Office. He's coming on next week. And he's actually going to talk about how people can participate in Maryland's efforts to get to zero. And then Henry Alford of the State Highway Administration is also coming on. He's going to focus on roadway construction and work zones for those people that are involved in the construction industry. And we have people coming on that will talk about ergonomics and PPE moving forward. If people want to see, if you all want to see what happened in today's presentations, we will have it on our website, and it's been put on Facebook Live, so you have access to the presentations. And the PowerPoint from Captain Ebbert will be put on the website as well. And let me see, do I have any other notes? No, that's it for us. So thank you both to Lieutenant Francis and Captain.
Sorry, for some reason I lost you guys for a second. Apologize.
That's all right. We wanted to thank you both so very much for coming. We appreciate the ability to educate those that are interested in this particular, or these, in this case too, topics. And if you have any additional resources, such as what Captain Ebbert has said during this presentation, we will put on our resources page and a link on our website so people can access them later on. Thank you both.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you for what you guys do.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.